Let me welcome everyone in this room for an opportunity to try to review where we are with respect to the Massachusetts fishing industry. And I am particularly happy today to welcome the chair of the Full Oceans Subcommittee of the Commerce Committee, a good friend of mine, Senator Mark Begich from Alaska, who has taken the time to come up here as the chair and share in this information gathering and exchange of views. I just say to everybody here that over the now 26 years which I've been privileged to represent the state, and particularly this industry, and a lot of these struggles through the years, having rewritten the Magnuson bill at least 2 or 3 times, this has been a long fight. But throughout that fight, there's been a history of Alaska-Massachusetts cooperation. Senator Ted Stevens and I became very good friends and worked diligently together. In fact, we were rewriting the 1994 Magnuson-Stevens Act when the Senate changed hands, and what was going to be the Kerry-Magnuson Act became the Magnuson-Stevens Act, as it happens in the Senate. But we were partners, we were a team. And he was passionate about fishing, about the oceans. It is not no small irony that he passed away going on a fishing expedition, which is what he loved to do every summer. Took off in Alaska in a small plane, and we lost him years ago now. But it's really nice for me to have this partnership continue with Mark Begich, former mayor of Anchorage, and believe me, just as passionate and just as knowledgeable about the fishing interests and about this relationship that we need to work on. So I want this hearing today to consider the social and economic impacts of federal regulation and discuss how we make improvements, not only in the outcomes for fishermen, but in the relationship with the federal government. I thank NOAA Administrator Jan Lachenko for taking the time out of her schedule to be here, and I welcome all of the other witnesses who are here today. I apologize for the elongated nature of this hearing room, but the Gardner Auditorium where we would have perhaps met was already booked, and we didn't want to delay the hearing yet again simply over location. Nobody here needs any lessons about what a critical component of our historic, cultural, economic fabric the fishing industry is to us. Gloucester and New Bedford are 2 of the largest ports in the nation for landing fish, and the commercial fishing industry of our state supports over 77,000 jobs in Massachusetts. Unfortunately, with many of our fishermen and local businesses, they're all facing an increased difficulty of just staying in business. Jim Keating is like any other commercial fisherman in Massachusetts. He understands the rules and he's trying to live by them. And I think all of us can agree that regulation shouldn't get in the way of common sense or simple efforts to try to provide adequate for family and to ply your trade. But recent changes in federal regulations have had an impact, major impact, on the fishing allocation. It's made it much more difficult for Mr. Keating and for many others to make a living doing what they love to do and have done for years. As a result, Jim has had to sell his boat and his home. Now he's forced to rent another boat just to make ends meet. And obviously, I don't think anybody believes that's an acceptable situation. It highlights the challenge that we face. Some of it just sheer disappointment, some of it economic reality, some of it a mistrust that has grown up. And we need to try to understand it better and eliminate that mistrust. I intend to introduce legislation called Fishery Research and Conservation Investment Act, which will focus federal funding under the Kennedy Saltonstall Act on identifying the critical research, conservation, and management needs in each separate fishery region of the country. And I hope that this will once and for all allow the federal funds to go where they were originally intended, to address the critical problems facing the science and the decision-making process, which has contributed to the mistrust. Under this legislation, the fishery region would develop a 5-year fishery investment plan that would specifically address their needs, and money from the Kennedy Salt and Stall Fund would be used to implement that. Our fishermen will be deeply involved in helping to develop these plans, something that I think many feel has not been sufficiently attended to. I'll just say quickly that in 2009, Senator Kennedy and I, together with our House colleagues, worked to confront the Department of Commerce. We requested an investigation into the potential abuses and intimidation of certain fishermen. And Dr. Lubchenco, even though you had only just taken office at that time, literally it's 2009, the new administration had just come in and you've just been appointed, the vast majority of those abuses took place during past administrations. But nevertheless, I want to thank you for taking our request seriously. You initiated the Department of Commerce Inspector General report. I know it's not an easy thing to do the moment you come into a new job, but I think it was important you did that. It helped to stop the abuse, and I think now more than $600,000 has been returned in unnecessary fines. I think there's still more that we can do. You and I have talked about it. We can talk about some of that today. In 2008, I was able to join with our colleagues in the House in successfully obtaining disaster funding for Massachusetts, and that's been helpful. But and we expanded the health insurance for fishermen. But every one of us knows we've got a long way to go to try to get this relationship on an even keel. Most importantly, in 2010, approximately 80% of gross revenues resulted from landings from only 20% of active vessels. That clearly threatens the future of small boat fishing in Massachusetts, and small boat fishing is what has been at the center of life in our state for generations. So that's the struggle, that's what we want to focus on.